5:15, I'd like to call the Finance and Personnel Committee to order. Everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, geez. That would have been fun.
Can I get a motion to adopt the amended agenda with the
So
addition
moved.
of B under item 4?
So moved. Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have a discussion on the amendment of the essential articles of organization and bylaws. Chad?
In your packet, there was a resolution from East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. I apologize. This memo was supposed to be in there as well. We will make sure that this memo is included in the council packet because both that memo and the attached resolution will go to council. But in a nutshell, East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission contacted the city. They're looking at changing their bylaws a little bit. Nicole, if you could scroll down just a little bit in there, maybe kind of get rid of that side panel. What they're doing is I'll go up right there. Right in that middle paragraph, they're talking about amending their bylaws to remove the gubernatorial appointment because of just delays in the appointment from the state government. So they're looking at modifying who's on the East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. It sounds like that Outagamie County and Wapaka County have both passed a resolution supporting the bylaws changes already. And they need a number of municipalities also to support the change in the bylaws. If you scroll down a little bit, Nicole, in the attachment, and you guys will see this attachment for the council meeting as well. Keep going until you see like red lines. We do keep going down right about there. So you'll see in here that they're talking about how they're changing it. So if you scroll up to A a little bit, it talks about removing the government appointment, and then the chairperson and the county executive from each member county within the regional planning commission shall have supporting members and kind of go from there. So they're just asking municipalities to support this. The larger counties already have adopted this, at least Outagamie County and Wapaka County, and they're just going through this process. So if you have additional information or questions, I can ask the Regional Planning Commission about those questions, and I'm sure Melissa will get that information. But in a nutshell, that's what she's asking for at this point in time, just changing who's on their board of directors. And this would be a recommendation to the city council for the resolution.
We need a
Need a motion to approve the resolution to amend the articles of organization and the bylaws of East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission.
I'd make that motion. Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consider a contract with Quarles and Brady LLP to create development agreement with Titan Industries, TID 6. Chad?
So in your packet, you'll find a proposal from Quarles and Brady to assist us in creating a developers agreement. We've been approached by Titan Industries as they're looking at doing a nice expansion on their building. And that's why they asked us for some, seeing the city could help them in any way with their expansion, as the city's done with some other projects in town. One of the ways that we can do that is using TID district money. So we're using basically their tax dollars to help finance development. So it's not really city tax dollars, or the city budget money going into there, but we're using TIF dollars like we talked about with some of the other TID districts to help promote development. So this would be to have Quarles and Brady help us with a developers agreement. We want to protect the city. We have to have a developers agreement to make sure we're protecting the city in these endeavors. And we want to make sure that we have somebody who knows what they're doing in creating these developers agreements and protect the city. We had Quarles and Brady do the developers agreement with us for the Randy Retzloff project. We have Quarles and Brady helping us with the SC Swiderski project, and now we're asking them to also help us with this potential project with Titan. So I'm asking the council to approve us hiring them to help us create that developers agreement.
Are we creating a new TID district up there?
We are working towards that. So we've talked about it a little bit. We would have to bring all that stuff. The council would have to approve that as well. This is one of the cogs in that whole machine of getting that TID district created. We're working towards getting the joint review board group together and setting those meeting dates, setting the boundaries. And those are all the type of things that we would be bringing in the proposal plan. If you remember some of the other TID districts, we had that document with all the plan documents. It talked about the budgets and talked about the boundaries and what we were going to do with that money. So we would be bringing that to you as well down the road.
Hey Chad, how come that comes from Minneapolis, that letter? Is Quarles and Brady headquartered there now, not Milwaukee?
The individual we're working with, I believe, is in Minnesota, isn't he?
Huh. Yeah, the letter came.
Yeah,
Yep.
he is.
So, yeah, the individual.
But they're
we're
out of
working with-
Milwaukee yet too.
Yeah.
They just have all kinds of, yeah, more than one office. And the reason for this too is that it's the timing. So you will see the project plan before we actually put dollars into this. And the reason that Chad brought it to the finance meeting is because we don't have another finance meeting before we have those TID district meetings. So in order for us to move forward with the attorney, once we get the other stuff approved, this needed to be approved also. So that's why it seems kind of odd why this is being approved, I think, prior to the other discussions.
And obviously the actual developers agreement, whatever we negotiate, would come to the council for approval. You guys would see that end result before it would be signed.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve a contract with Quarles and Brady to create the developer agreement with Titan Industries to District 6?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consider tax incremental district ERTID termination resolution. Judy?
So our ERTID 1 is closing, and as part of the process, I did get a hold of the state of Wisconsin, thank goodness, prior to this meeting. And this is one of the processes that need to be followed in order for us to get that TID district out of a TID and onto our regular rolls. So what happens is we notify, this is our first notification to the state of Wisconsin that we will be closing our TID. And I did contact Adam already, because part of that process is he's got to take those parcels that are within this TID district. And this is over by Beacon Street Deli. I mean, the Beacon Street Cottages, Beacon Street Deli, Beacon Street Cottages. All of those will be coming out of the TID and then becoming part of our tax process. It'll be, the value within that TID district is about $738,000 that will be going on the tax rolls. It's not a huge dollar amount, but everything helps. And the city portion of those dollars is about $7,000. But there is some limits on that when it comes to our tax levy, of course. And I think it's about 50% that gets to flow into the tax levy. The rest of it is supposed to reduce your tax levy. What the state would like to have the rest of those dollars. So just a resolution that needs to be passed in the beginning stages of closing that.
Can I get a motion to approve the tax incremental district ERTID termination resolution?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. To the finance director's report.
All right, so here we are at the end of 2021. Please remember when I go through these numbers that they are estimated and they are unaudited. We will have an audit that comes to you in July. Also keep in mind, when I take a look at these year-end reports, I'm extremely conservative about the revenues that go in and also very conservative about the expenditures that I pick in a dollar amount. I do know there still are some revenues that will be flowing into this, and I do know there will be some expenditures that still come out. We do pay 2021 bills all the way through the end of February. But I also take that into consideration when I am providing these estimates to you. I also book a number of revenue estimates and a number of expenditure estimates as I go through this process. I get input from all department heads on their any bills that they may have through the end of 2021, and I take all of that in consideration when I present this information to you. So we will start with the 2021 year end expenditures. And I want to go through, I'm going to grab this, okay? I think I have to turn it on. All right, a little bigger. I got it. Yeah, let's make it a little bigger. I don't want it blue. There we go.
I'll make that go away too.
All right, so what I do at the end of the year is I take a look at, and why can't I go down anymore? You doing something wrong? Okay, oops. I want this one. This is the one that I kind of pick apart. I do pick apart for you guys, and I don't know why I'm having problems with this thing. Okay. So what I'm talking about when I go through this first page, I was just talking to Chad and I'm like, it would be really nice if I had two of these so I can put things side by side one another, because I'd really like to show you this at the same time as I'm explaining it. And maybe that's easiest. Maybe it's easiest if I keep this up and then I go through the explanations as we go through each line item. So I think that's what I'll do. So the mayor and council, the only reason that there isn't, so we are under budget. So in the expenditure side, when I say we are under budget, that is a good thing. That's where we try to target for at the end of the year. A lot of things happen in a year, either to cause an overage or underage within a budget. But the mayor and council was under, and part of that is that we know still with COVID here, there are a lot of meetings that aren't being attended, or they're being attended via Zoom, and we're not having to pay those fees or those mileage reimbursements or those hotels. So there was saving within that line item in that category. Administration, this includes clerk, treasurer, city administrator, building inspection. There's an array of expenditures within the administrative line item. And the reason that this is 41,000 under budget is that we had an open position. And when you have an open position, things can add up quite quickly. So with an open position, you also have health insurance that goes along with that position. So fringes really add up quite quickly. So that was the under dollar amount within the administration. Insurance, and please stop me at any time if you have any questions about any of these items, or if you'd like more clarification on those. Insurance, we ended up with $71,000. Our workers' comp dividend was much larger than we anticipated. Civic actually pays the city back once they take a look at their revenue and expenditures within workers' comp, and they were able to, they try to return as much money to the communities as they can, and they were able to give a much larger insurance dividend than in previous years. Also, we had less unemployment costs. As we know, with COVID, we had a number of individuals that we were paying unemployment to, and our costs went up the previous year. So in this year, I added to unemployment, and then we didn't utilize all the dollars in our second year. All right, then we'll move on to public works. Although in public works, we did have $58,000 in savings within public works. Although we did have higher salt and sand costs, we had less snow. So that saves in overtime. So we had the guys going out being called in less than normal. And from year to year in the snow plowing budget, I do actually have quite a large budget within snow plowing, because the last thing you want to do is make your people think they can't go out and plow snow and roads need to be plowed. You have to give some leeway within that budget so that they're able to do their job when they need to. So there is enough money in there. So we had some, a number of events, which we know in the state of Wisconsin, we normally would, but this last year and this year, actually, we have seen less snowfall and less call-in. So if we are coming in for snow, it's not on weekends, it's during the week while they're already here. Also within Public Works, another open position. So as you know, we had a number of open positions last year within our budget. So that's what added to that $58,000 overage also. And we move on to Parks, Building and Grounds in the Washington Center. Again, COVID has affected our expenditure side of this equation. Seasonal wages for recreation were down. We had temporary open positions, and this is, you're going to hear the same thing over and over again. And we all know we're all having a hard time, first of all, finding employees, and second of all, we had COVID and a lot of programs and things were not being ran last year again. Also, with some of those restrictions. So we had temporary open positions in part. We had our gym wages were down, I guess, less programming running into this year. And then we had some change in employees. So anytime when you have an employee not on your books for even 2-3 months, you're saving all of those wages plus pensions and health insurance will add up very, very quickly within a budget. Recreation. Seasonal wages were down, fringes were down, overtime was down. Again, we had less programs within the recreation department. Cable 3, as we know, we had someone absent from that position for, I think it was 4 months or something of that nature. Again, there you were wages and fringes and benefits. Swimming pool. Open positions, wages and fringes. They were having a difficult time, although I think things are looking a little better over there as far as employees are concerned. Having a hard time finding employees over at our pool. And then that pool moved from 2 full-time to 1 full-time position. And so we did have some open positions in there too during the year. Senior van and center. The senior center, it was running less programs. So again, wages and salaries. Police department, they had change in staffing, and this too will add up very, very quickly. They had $42,000. Therefore, salaries, overtime, fringes. They also had some savings within gasoline. So I don't know that I'll be talking about that next year, but there was some savings in gasoline last year. The fire department. The fire department did less inspections. That was the biggest part of it, because they weren't allowed in buildings because of COVID. So they had some savings within their inspections. Also, they changed staff. So they have people coming and going over at our fire department, although their fringes won't add up quite as quickly. Most of that was actually inspections. Ambulances, even. The cemetery was, I think it was their tree and stump removal, and we'll talk about that actually. Social services, street wages, there was minimal usage of the street department within those services last year. It wasn't a big dollar amount, $2,500. The library and museum. The museum was a minimal change. It was the library that had again, they weren't open some of last year. So wages and salaries and overtime, fringes, their lobby was closed part of last year. Then we move to equipment replacement. The reason this is so much over is that we used designated funds to make the difference up. So we had our phone system we had designated funds for, and a number of other items. Also what's on there is anything that where a capital equipment item would be moved from 1 year to the next year. So let's say in 2020, we needed a piece of equipment and we couldn't get it. We then charge that in the following year, and then I would reduce capital projects for that dollar amount. So even though it looks like it's over, we did have the dollars to cover that one. Equipment maintenance, we went over, we've been talking about this one all year. $26,000. You will see at the end, I will talk about us utilizing some of these funds to make up the difference of those and shift them over to the capital budget. Debt service, 59,000. All of that, that was, we had in 2020, we took out a bonding for the Wyman Street project. And I overestimated the amount of the debt service for the year. So that will go all to reserve. We are required to reserve any funds, especially within this line item that's over budgeted. We will not see that again this year. Community development is economic development. We had quite a few, we had the 25,000 that went to a business in town, and quite a few of the, what is the program downtown, Chad?
Facade improvement.
There you go. Quite a few facade improvement. Actually, that's a great thing. So there was some overage in there here, but you'll see that I put some of these dollars actually aside, and then some of our extra funding, the $430,000 will go to help economic development. We try to keep this as funded as possible because we want to be able to utilize some of those funds within our community development when we need them. And once I go into the designated funds, I'll talk about how we'd like to fund some of that community development and the downtown projects that are going on. Capital projects was under, we have some of those projects that are still moving forward into this year. So what I'll do is designate those funds going into next year. There's two things that we have that were unassigned this year. We had a loan for a business, and then we had some special assessments that are within our revenue side that I needed to balance onto the expenditure side that we take in but are owed to the utility. So it's for water main. So I want, and it was a pretty large dollar amount. It was like $31,000 or $38,000. So I needed to show that on the expense side so that we weren't trying to assign those or move those funds over to capital. I need those funds to be able to pay the utility for their water main. Any questions on that? So the city actually came out under budget in expenditures for the year, estimated for the year 2021. We anticipated spending 8.7 million. We spent 8.3 million. As you can see, that's still 95% of our budget. So even though you go, oh boy, $430,000, when you think about it in percentages, there's only 5% of the budget. So it's really not this astronomical dollar amount when you look at it in total, like, why can't you get any closer, or why can't we be a little tighter? But you can also see that a lot of things are unpredictable as open positions are. And you want to be fully funded in those positions because it's just by chance that those positions are opened. And you can't expect those kinds of positions to be open from year to year. So even though it looks like it's a large number, it's 5% of the total budget. Any questions on any of those expenses? All right, then we'll move on to the revenue side. And the revenues also looked real healthy for this year. So we anticipated collecting 8.7, and we collected 8.9 million. But keeping in mind that part of those dollars are not part of the general fund. So when you take a look at the general fund, and I gave you the pages if you're interested in looking at the detail itself, but our general fund portion of this budget is $7.2 million because we put capital in here also. And we collected $7.4 million. So our actual revenue surplus for 2021 is $189,000. Now, where did that come from? As you can see here, our tax equivalent, our utility tax payment ended up being $38,000 more than we anticipated. So that was a big one. We also collected quite a bit more in construction permit fees. Even though the building expense side of our budget was well over budget, we also collected a lot more revenue on our license and permit side. We expect to continue with this kind of revenue going into 2022. Also, the police department received quite a few grants, overtime grants from Wapaka County that are included in here. Those are the big ones. So that left us with $189,000 more in revenue. Okay. And then we had our savings on the expenditure side of $373,384. So in total, we had $562,000 within our budget. That was either unexpensed or additional revenue. What I take a look at when I see this dollar amount is first, what do we already have in assigned dollars that we need to account for? So that's cable 3. So anything we take in revenue for cable 3 or anything we expense out in cable 3, they have their own assigned fund balance. We're required to keep that separate. So I have to take out the difference between the revenues and expenses. And this year was pretty big because we have the open position. So $49,000 we will see added to the cable 3 account. Boat launch. Boat launch is another one that we account for separately. We want to make sure that the dollars that we are being spent at the boat launch are being added back in the assigned balance for boat launch. So that was $32,000. Also, we put away $45,000 a year if we can, and if it's feasible from year to year in our expenditure budget or our retirement reserve. Remember, this helps us with bonding, keeping our rates lower so that when people leave the city, we have the dollars that are already funded to pay them for the sick leave vacation payout that they have already accumulated. The one that I added to this list was capital maintenance. I talked about the fact that we went over in our capital maintenance for last year for $26,500. I put an even dollar amount in there. So I want to move the money from the general fund over to the capital budget to make up for that difference. So that leaves us with $408,000. And it would be my recommendation that $350,000 of these dollars move over to our capital budget to allow us at our next meeting to fill some of those capital equipment and project lists from our department heads that they need in order to move forward in their departments. The other thing that I would recommend is that we add $30,000 to our economic development designated funds. So that when something goes on in your economic development committee meeting and you ask, where are we going to find those funds? We can add some money to that designated fund that can be utilized if something is happening within economic development and you decide you want to hire somebody or you want to do something for business or something of that nature. There are some funds available to that committee to be able to move forward. Then my next recommendation would be that we start saving for our revaluation. And there's more atoms in here, and things are all over the place today. Values are extremely high. Our numbers are under 80% as far as the values are concerned. And our next recommendation would be to add or to start assigned fund balance for a reval for the city, because we know eventually we're going to be forced to do it. And that will just move us forward towards being able to pay for that. So
idea how much an evaluation would cost?
Our last one cost us $80,000. So this is just moving us forward in the direction of, we won't do it for, we wouldn't have to do one, I don't think, for 3 years. So every year I would take a look at this, and so that would give us hopefully maybe another 25 next year, the year after, and then when we would go into reval, we would budget within the capital budget for that final year, whatever the difference was. It just moves you forward, also keeps you, because it's on a list of assigned funds balance, keeps it in your mind, oh yeah, that's right, the city's gonna have this reval coming up. So, away from that, does anyone have any questions? And they want to talk about or discuss any other items that you might want to think about in this? I think as a community, as a committee, I think it's really important that any of those funds that we have left over within our operational budget are used to help that capital fund. As we know, things age, and part of why our capital maintenance is going up. And we struggle trying to make ends meet when it comes to our capital fund, our capital equipment, and our capital projects. And I just really think that is something that the taxpayers would be extremely happy knowing that their dollars were being invested back within the community in this nature. So those are my recommendations for those, that $480,000. Any questions, comments, or concerns? I can take those at this time. It is the direction I have been going for a lot of years with our operational funds. And the reason I did that is because I feel like we have an extremely healthy unassigned fund balance. And there have been a number of years, maybe 5-6 years ago, I'd say, let this flow into unassigned fund balance so we can continue to have, X amount in our unassigned fund balance. But I feel like we are in a very good spot in our unassigned fund balance, in that we don't have to continue to add to that, because that is the other spot that this wouldn't go to. So I think we are in a group. Yes.
We have a couple of very big equipment purchases and we have to make them next year.
Correct. And I'll talk about that once we get to the capital. Any other comments or questions? So what will happen here is we're going on into unassigned fund balance. So you're going to see a lot of what I just talked about within this next presentation on assigned and unassigned fund balance. Okay, so here we are. We talk about these every finance meeting. I have our assigned and unassigned fund balance that I show to you. And a lot of times I don't make any changes, but tonight you're going to see a change in just about every single one of these. And that is from what I just talked about. So a lot of the revenues and expenditures are flowing into these now, and now we're assigning them for a particular purpose. Please know that even though we do this, we can change it. So you still have the authority as a committee, if we choose tonight to move forward, you still have the chance or the ability to change any of these at a future meeting if you so desire. So it's not like you put them in there and then that written in stone. There are some of them that you cannot touch, like the cable TV and boat launch, but like capital projects is, there's a number of them that we can switch and move around. I wouldn't suggest that we do that, but it isn't like when you put them in there, you can't make a choice to move them. So what we end up with the capital projects is revenue of $533,000. This is the expense going into 2020, or just what we expensed in 2021. here's the list of the projects I talked about, how we have projects that are hanging out there that we either couldn't get finished for whatever reason. And that's 294,000. So those have to be added in there. So our capital projects reserve at the end of 2021 would be a very healthy $777,000. Now, what happens is when we go over into 2022, you're going to see me start with 777,000. And I'm going to put $200,000 of revenue in there and all of our expense, and we're going to be back at about $200,000. We talked about that, keeping that at like 294, using that $100,000 when we bonded. So even though this looks extremely healthy, and why is there so much money in there? When you turn around and go into the new year, within the next year's budget, the only amount of revenue that we have is $239,000 being added in there. That's why that's so big. Then the expense that comes out in 2022 is quite large. It'll look much like the $772,000 that you see right there, because it's the actual budget plus the projects to be completed that have to come out of there. All right, cable. They have a addition here that I talked about, the 990 less the expenditure. So they're at a very healthy $311,000. I know you're looking at doing something within this very room, utilizing some of those dollars. Here's the 59,000 for debt service. When we bond, they look very, they like to see that you have some bond dollars set aside just in case. So it doesn't have to be huge dollar amount, but when we go out to bond and they're looking at our interest rate, they like to see that we have something in here, and we have no choice but to put these dollars in here because that's what we said we were going to spend it on. Boat launch. Here is the original balance. Then remember we had some sale of docks. Here's where I have put those dollars earmarked 844,000 or 8,440, totally different number. You wish. Revenue, 32,000, our expense because the replacement of the docks and the ADA kayak were put in. So we still have $20,000 within that boat launch. I thought that was pretty good after the nice project that got done, completed this year. Phone upgrade, that's still going on. So we have some dollars for that. The trails ATC is at 43,000. And the downtown facade, here's where I put the revenue for $30,000 in here. And then I did put the expenditure. So this is how much was spent in the facade. So there's a nice healthy $77,000 sitting in that downtown facade economic development fund. Revitalization, those are some dollars that I think is conjunction with the chamber that we have to use in conjunction with them. When the first tape bank had this dollars, they just kind of gave them to me and said, here, take those.
That's for that chamber downtown revitalization committee. They did a bunch of things over the years. It's been sitting there for a while.
Yep, so I just earmarked them. I don't want them to be spent inappropriately, and they are in conjunction with the chamber. There's our retirement reserve I talked about. So there's the $45,000 flowing into there. Technology, that's MS Office. So that project is completed. So now what that is just at the end of the year, we have $34,000 sitting in the technology budget just in case. As we know, this is technology today. Who knows what's going to happen? So it just gives you a little bit of money set aside for that technology budget. Weather sirens. Eventually we're going to get rid of this. We talked about maybe buying or giving away radios for people. So I just left it at the $27,000. All these others are specific purpose. We hold money for Hatton Stadium. I still am waiting for some of these to be reconciled, but again, these are not our dollars, but we hold these in trust. I see that I don't have 25,000 in here, do I? I'm missing that one for the reval. But you know what? I think I have it on my oops. I have it on my sorry. think I have that on the last page. If not, we'll have to add that when we get that far. Just remind me. Wheel tax, as we know, we have to keep that separate. So I added in the revenue, took out the expenditure as of the end of the year. Now just keep in mind, I don't think I have all the Shawano Street in here. I'm pretty sure I don't. But we have the money that will be moving forward into 2021 for that
That
project.
should be pretty much close to all the expenses, but we should be getting the revenue from the LRIP grant
To go back.
to go
in there.
back in there.
Okay,
So it'll be changed a little bit once we get that money. It was like $24,000 or something for the grant. But
Okay.
I can't submit that until the whole project. There's still some retainage on the Warner Allen side of it that we have to pay out yet for some punch list items. So
so when we approved this list tonight, I'll probably come back a second time with an update of some of these numbers that have to be assigned. Remember, I'm audited. So I have to make sure that these tie out to what our books are telling us that we have. So if we get some revenue dollars in, I have to make sure those are booked in 2021. And then also have to add that assessment dollar amount if I don't have it for that assessment. So they definitely take a look at the auditors at these numbers and make sure that that coincides with what I have in our actual financials. So I probably will have to come back with an update in March. My audit's not till March 31st, so it'll give me the opportunity to take a second look at all of these and make sure that I have them all tied out for that purpose. Any questions on any of those? I do expect our unassigned fund balance to actually go up a little. I would expect it to go up a little bit more than this. This is a very conservative estimate. This has about $3,000 added to it. I'm just going to expect that it goes up a little bit more than that, to be honest.
I was just kind of curious what the trails ATC is.
So those are dollars that can be used for the trail system, and we have ATC. So the American Transmission Corporation
company.
Company. $2,843 flow into the city from the state of Wisconsin through the ATC, the American Transmission Corporation. And we have to designate this for a specific purpose. And for trails in particular, or something in the recreation area. And since we've been receiving, and don't ask me why, because I'm not really sure, but they take a part of the dollars that we get and they want it for recreation. So that's where that $2,643 come. We designate it for our trails. So that way, if the state comes in and they say, what are you using that? Well, we're saving it for a trail project. So this can be utilized at the discretion of the recreation department, wherever they want to utilize these funds for trails.
So like if we had to redo the walking trails, that's where the money would come.
You are correct.
Yep.
If
It could
you
be
didn't
used
want-
for Newton Blackmore Trail. It could be used, and there's been donations from people and organizations over the years specifically for trails. Like the Waters had a fundraiser one time, it went into that account. So.
Any other questions on any of those? Bonding. This is something I anticipate doing. Chad and I are going to sit down and we're going to talk about, oops, I'm sorry, wheel tax. Missed that one. Wheel tax first. When I gave you this, I didn't have my final December number, but in between here, I did get it. So we actually collected 130,441. So I was pretty close. In revenue for the wheel tax. So it left us with 67,642 to move forward. That is one of those that I did already change when we assigned fund balance a little bit later. So we should be able to do some kind of project moving in. This will have to be talked about how we're going to use those dollars moving. And we did talk about possibly some back here with Avon, Lima, and Lions. But again, Chad and I are gonna sit down, and we're gonna go through, I'm gonna try to put together, when I gave you the roads that we were gonna move forward on and the bonding that we were looking at, I'd like to come full circle and go back and take a look at that and talk about, because we also have some dollars left within this bonding schedule that we want to talk about what would be the best way for us to utilize some of this funding. So for now, we're just providing you with the information that we have about 1.356 million left in that bonding. I know there's some money that's coming back in for Warner Allen, but again, I'd like to come full circle in that schedule that I put together for you of all the roads that we'll be doing in the next 10 years. And then how are we going to pay for it schedule? And in there will be some of this information, and we'll make some choices about how we'd like to spend some of this money moving forward.
Now, the 1.35 million, some of that was designated that we have not spent for like Newton Blackmore Trail. We had
Correct.
over
So-
$200,000 in the original budget for that. So
Correct. So we will sit down and we'll pull all of that out and then see what's left and where we're gonna go. Here to possibly back here on Avon, Lions and Lima, some of that project. So that gives us a month to see some other funding sources. Hopefully that may show up in between.
and then go back up to the wheel tax. So the Lima, Avon, Lima, Lions construction and the North Water Street Bridge. Been talking to our engineers, and we've got that new federal infrastructure bipartisan blah, blah, blah funding that's coming out. They're looking for shovel-ready projects for 2022. So in the next month, I think the application process just opened because the federal government pushed that down to the DOT, and the DOT is now pushing that money out. So we're 2 projects. I mean, we're already looking at Avon, Lima, and Lions. Those are all getting ready to go. We'll see if we can capture any of that immediate 2022 funding with that federal funds. Also, the North Water Street Bridge would probably be a good candidate for that, because if you have a lot of utility work or road acquisition, they don't want to see that for this first round. They want to push that out for the next round. So those might be 2 projects we might throw at that immediate funding for 2022.
And are you thinking about throwing Oshkosh Street in there or?
Oshkosh Street, because of the complexity of that would not be a 2022 project, just because there's a lot of utilities and things like that. But that would be eligible for, there's 2 pots. There's one for 2022, shovel ready to go. Then there's for the 2023 through 2026 cycle, which Oshkosh Street, if we don't get the LRIP supplemental money grant that we applied for, we could turn around and go for this grant. So
Isn't Oshkosh Street for next year? For this year?
Oshkosh Street, we applied for LRIP funding supplemental, so local roads improvement program. If you recall, the governor put X million dollars into LRIP supplemental and LRIP designate. It was LRIP D, whatever they called that. And we applied for that, and
But will
probably not-
Oshkosh Street be worked on in 22? or
not 22.
No.
No, that'll be like a 2023, 2024, depending on the grant money we get.
That'll fall in the same time we're gonna do downtown.
Possibly.
So it's gonna be, you know, a lot of this is how next month, we're gonna talk a lot about that, like, we plan to do this, but if this happens, then this happens. So there's a lot of that happening. I mean, it's all really good stuff that's happening, but we can say we're gonna do this, but if something else happens, then we're gonna shift again. So we might have a lot of shifting of hopefully revenue sources.
I think ideally, Fred, we would try to push Oshkosh for 2023 as the big project for that year, and obviously 2024 for downtown. So
And Casey
think
probably
that-
should change his thing on Shadow Street from Walmart to the railroad tracks.
did he get that funding yet? Because he applied for the LRIP funding. too. I don't know if he's got that either. So yep, he's asked for all these grant money. Everybody's throwing money at grants out for it. So
Okay, so. Share with you. Every year, Is there any questions on any of that financial data that I went through? Because we will have to approve two resolutions, assigning fund balance, and then we're gonna have to do an adjustment to our budget because we went over on that capital budget, so we have to move some dollar amount around for that. But before we get to that, every year we share with you this fringe benefit calculation report that we give to every single city and full-time city employee. So what we share with them is, not only do you get a salary, but these are all the other things that the city pays for on your behalf. So, we've always shared this with the committee, so you can see the information that we provide to our employees and let them know that, you know, the cost of city, also additional dollars on top of the actual paycheck that we get. Including health insurance and things of that nature, for an employee to be employed here. Any questions on that? So we compare last year to this year. Or last year to the year before, I should say. We're 2022 now. And then, we can move on to item 6.
Need a motion to approve the resolution to amend the 2021 budget.
Okay, so what I want to explain before we go ahead with that is that in 2021, this is what we passed as our original 2021 budget in the left-hand column. And what we're doing is shifting some dollars, as you can see in the capital fund, in particular, and a little bit in the general government, because we had to add in for those specials in that loan that we, I put those in the general government category, so about 5,000 in there. But in total, nothing changed. So it's not like we're spending more money than we originally said we were going to. All it is a shift from one category to another. So we had some savings in public safety or public works. We shifted those dollars into the capital fund and shifted those into general government, so that at the end of the day, when you look at your budget, and this is required by state statute that we do this, that if you go over in any of these categories, they are specific to us and specific to every community that you have to put money in to pay for them. So it's just a shift in category. It is not an increase in our overall fund expenditures.
Can I get a motion?
So move. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I'll also need a motion to approve the resolution assigning fund balance for the year end 12/31/2021.
Okay.
You want to explain that?
Thank you. And I did have the revaluation reserve in here. So it is in the actual ordinance. Again, our fund balance resolution. I do have to do this also, again, something the auditors look for. And then they tie these numbers back to our actual financial statements. So we need you as a committee to approve all of the assigned fund balance that we just went through, and that you're agreeing that, yes, we would like these balances within these categories. And again, just so you know, you are able to move these in some instances, not where we hold money in trust or for a particular purpose. But these are all of the assigned and unassigned fund balance that I just went through.
I would make that motion.
Second. Made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Financial director's report. Judy?
I'm sorry, and I should have also said that approving that also indicates that you want to put $380,000 into our capital fund. And you want to add $30,000 into our economic development area. And that all of the other dollars that we put into the cable and those that we have to do. And that we assign $25,000 to the revaluation reserve, just so you know that you're concurring with my recommendation. I just want to be, very upfront about that. Because we will be going into the capital budget and those dollars will be showing up in there. If that is not something you wanted to do, then we will take them out. But the $380,000 is already added into that capital side.
Should I do that one over again? With the new information?
I don't,
No?
unless somebody is opposed.
Anyone
Yeah.
change their vote
Yeah.
based on the.
All right, finance director report.
All right. Lots of tax collection. As you know, everyone in our offices has definitely been a part of that tax collection. It is a group effort on all of our behalfs. So we are winding down finally from that, and Nicole finally gets a little break, and then she will move right into elections. So it's kind of been a little crazy for her trying to get done with one and onto the other, or actually simultaneously trying to keep everything straight. So thank you for that. And we scan out our W-2s, our 1099s. Our payroll system was updated. There's a lot of work that has to be done at the end of the year, obviously, to change salaries and deductions and health insurance and all those kind of things. I spend a lot of time doing year-end adjustments and estimates so that I can present this information to you tonight. Part of the wellness committee and the You'll Be Fit winners were announced, and we're gonna move forward with our PHAs this year in some fashion. We're looking at some options. I prepared the statement of taxes, distributing them to the taxing jurisdictions. Talk about tax collection, payroll, federal and state reports. Lots of those due actually by Monday. The 31st is always a big deadline for anyone in the administrative world, payroll world, a lot of federal and state, including our retirement reports that have to be out by the 31st. April, we begin the 22 budget, punching that into our financial system. So the department heads will take a look at that, make sure it's what they anticipated, what they submitted. I participated in our CIVMIC board meeting. And then we all met as department heads to prioritize and discuss our capital projects and equipment lists, which we will be going through tonight. Any questions on any of that? And I'm trying to figure out a new phone system. Probably the hardest job I have. Just kidding.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? If not, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah. Motion carried. We are adjourned.